Right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elliot Symonds and I work for Jarrold Training. And one of the missions that we had today was to explain to people who Jarrolds actually are. And most people go, well, you've got a shop, haven't you? A rather lovely shop with an expanded wine bar and delicatessen on the ground floor. I understand that gin and cheese is rather popular here. But yes, if you do get the chance to go and visit our department store, it's a wonderful place to go. But we are part of a 250-year-old company, family-owned, going into its 8th generation. And we also have facilities management company. We build office blocks, houses. We've got a charitable trust. And for some strange reason, we have a boutique business school. We train about 3,000 organisations a year in different areas like IT, business skills, leadership and management, health and safety, project management, lots of accredited stuff. And one of the things that we do is insights discovery, which is a psychological diagnostic tool which is used to assess people in the workplace. Now, I'm going to be doing a little bit of acting today and it starts right now. As I say, my name is Elliot Symonds and I want to tell you a little bit about me. I was a Norwich boy and I was born here 50 years ago and I went off to King's College where I got a master's degree in Jacobean and Caroline drama. Already, I know, thank you very much. And of course, only about 5% of people went there to university in those days and it was, you know, a wonderful experience. I went to an all-girls university to study Macbeth in Naples. They didn't know that Elliot was a boy's name. This was before the internet. But it enabled me to get a job with a brewery. This is one of the reasons why I'm such a portly chap now, and I worked in breweries for over 15 years. One of the brands we worked with was called Stella Artois. Some of you may have heard of it. An anagram of it is Elliot's a star. It took me 2 years to figure that out with my masters in Jacobean and Caroline drama, but I did several exciting things with the brewery world, and it's interesting that that text has changed there because it's obviously corrupted as it's come across over that, but I apologise if there are any others. Anyway, I went to Ashridge Business School to get a proper qualification, which was Management Studies to Distinction, and I went to work to Pepsi for a while. Now, the thing which is interesting about both these companies is they worked with insights discovery as well. So when I was 26, I had my first insights discovery profile and was amazed by how accurate it was. And now I'm a licensed practitioner working with it. Anyway, I made a big bad decision one day and go to work for May Gurney, and I worked for them for about, anyone heard of them? Yes. Have you heard of them recently? No, because I was the idiot that went to work for them about 12 weeks before they got bought out by Kia. And I was made redundant. So what did I do? I went back to university again. And I went to the UEA and I got myself a postgrad to be able to be a lecturer. Got a DITLS qualification. And that enabled me to get to Jarrold Training. In my spare time, I like to do a lot of work for charity. I'm a trustee of a couple of charities and I like to do auctioneering. I stand up in front of crowds and I auction off stuff for charitable benefit. I've written a couple of novels. Please don't look them up. I don't wish to sell any very dark and dangerous things. Harry Potter wouldn't last 5 minutes. And I'm also the creative master behind a board game called Auctions, which was nominated for Strategic Card and Dice Game of the Year 2016. Right. Be honest with me. What were you genuinely thinking while I was going through that introduction about myself?
It's really interesting.
Is that what you were genuinely thinking? Was anybody else thinking anything else that might be? Very nice, Sue. All about me. I was projecting very much an extrovert character who is keen to talk about themselves. And you might come across people like that in your workplace. Some of you might be thinking that standing up here and talking about yourself would be the worst possible idea that could... Someone nodding there, that's excellent, yes. Let's get up. Anyway, it's not all about me, it's about you. What do you see when I put this picture up here? A lady, a woman, a young woman with a feather, a crone, a young lady, and an old lady. Who can see the young lady? Put your hands up. Who can see the old lady? Sue, where's the old lady from? Is she from Norwich? How old is she, Sue? Oh, that's good, isn't it? Because when they say they're about 50, I start getting really upset. And what sort of life has she had, this old lady from Norwich who's 100? Tough life. Oh, some people now, look, we've got people going, they can't see it.
I say Cruella de Vil.
You see Cruella de Vil. Nikki, can you see the old lady? Nikki, oh, yeah, that's what's wrong with you. Oh dear, this Nikki was a plant. Get ahead of yourself. Some people can't see the old lady. They're trying to find her. And I'd be saying, what's wrong with you? You can't see the old lady. You must be wrong. Everyone else can see the... Oh, I can see her.
I can see the young lady.
Oh, and she's... And what's wrong with you? The young lady is obviously from Paris. She's about 23. She's had a wonderfully elegant life. What's wrong with you? And this is part of the problem that we get in... Oh, now everybody just wants to know where the old lady and the young lady are, don't they? This is the old lady. This is her lips. There's... Oh, yeah. There's her chin, her nose, her hair at the top. The young lady, she's wearing a choker. She's got her head turned over to the side. Ah, you can see it now. You still can't see the old lady. Well, we want to help you out. Okay, look. This is her eye. That's her nostril. She's got like a shawl over her head. Yes! Yes! Hair's all here. No? And we could draw this out for ages. We could just keep saying, what's wrong with you? Now, this is all about perception. Yes, it's an optical illusion.
You see the crow?
A crow? What's wrong with her? Yeah. And there's a penguin and there's a lion and there's a rabbit, and it's really interesting when some people shout out a boat and you go, what? I can't see a boat. What's wrong with me? It's all about perception. And one of the reasons we talk about perception is because we're going to link it into a quote by Jung. Right? Now, I love Carl Gustav Jung, but before that, because you're an educational audience and you're all highly educated, I just wanted to go on a little bit of the history tour here. So you all remember being at school, don't you, and learning about Galen, Hippocrates, and the four humours? You were off that day, were you? Well, for thousands of years, right back to the ancient Greeks and Romans, they used to think that your personality was made up by the amount of blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile in your body. And this is what would make you either phlegmatic, melancholic, sanguine, choleric. And there was one major problem with this theory about people's personalities, and that was it was wrong. Yeah, thank you. Yes, well, you know, they thought it was probably right. You'd cut someone open, they'd be filled with phlegm, and they'd say, well, they were phlegmatic. But it wasn't particularly accurate. And it wasn't until the turn of the 19th and 20th century that we started to get very august, white male, pale and stale gentlemen like this from the continent, mainly German and Austria, who started to form the idea of psychology. And most people will have heard of Sigmund Freud, and he was right at the forefront of it. And hopefully a load of you will have heard about this chap here, Carl Gustav Jung. Now, Jung used to be a follower of Freud, and shortly after this photograph was taken in 1909 when they formed the American Psychological Association, Jung and Freud went for a walk together down by the lake, and Jung fell out with Freud in a big way. And he said, I don't think the way you're thinking about people's psychology is right. I think you're wrong. I think it's a different thing. And it's this particular quote that I love from Jung, where he said, the pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. Because if we start getting to a position where we say, my way of looking at the world is right, you're potentially saying that somebody else's way of looking at the world is wrong. And we should take that cognitive shift to say, the way that I look at the world makes sense to me, and your way can make no sense at all. And I've met some colleagues from Ashton Solicitors over there who look at the world in an opposing way to me. They're not wrong, but their world just doesn't make sense to me. Not because it's legal stuff where they're going to charge you £50 an hour to sort of like answer a letter, but, but because they're based on more introverted ideas, and I'm an extrovert. Now, this is what Jung came up with, okay? So he pulled this all together by 1919, really, and wrote his book, Psychological Types. And what I'm going to take you through is a couple of Jungian functions. Now, I should have asked beforehand, does anybody here have a degree in psychology? Thank goodness for that. Right, so everybody has heard, though, of introversion and extroversion, haven't you? Yeah, of course you have. These are words that have slipped into everyday common parlance. And Jung came up with this and he called it the attitudinal function. The attitudinal function of introversion and extroversion. So, what's the definition of an introvert?
Me.
Well, that was painful, wasn't it? Yeah. What's the definition of an introvert then?
Somebody that's not like you.
Not like me on the opposing side. So the extrovert is more outgoing. Well, when Jung came up with this, he said that an introvert is somebody who is compelled to think in order to speak. An introvert has to think in order to speak. So if an introvert has to think in order to speak, what? They're already getting there, aren't they? What does an extrovert do?
Speak to think.
I'm glad you said speak to think, speak in order to think, because a lot of people say speak before they think, Elliot. Why don't you engage brain before opening mouth? Well, actually, they have to. And the more extrovert you are, the more you're going to be gregarious and things are going to bubble up within you and come out, because you have to have that process to be able to think. And the introvert has to think in order to speak. The introvert will make things real when they've considered it in an inward fashion, and an extrovert makes it real when they've put it all out there for you. And won't they let you know? But are introverts shy? Not necessarily. They might be incredibly confident. Are extroverts all confident? No, they might be incredibly shy, but they cover it up with a load of song and dance routine like this. So that's the attitudinal function. And you will have a preferred place on that spectrum. When we do this insights discovery type thing, we are never ever putting people into boxes, ever. We're saying this is your preferred place. Because introverts can be extroverts, but if I was to get one of you introverts up here and ask you to do this, how would you feel?
I'd need some gin first.
You would need some gin first and probably some gin after as well.
Yes.
Yes. And if you take an extrovert and ask them to do something for a couple of hours where they have to be more considered and inward thinking, how are they going to feel? Frustrated, and I want some gin as well. Okay? So it's called the attitudinal function, and it's probably where the phrase, I don't like your attitude, came from. Now, the other major function that we talk about with insights discovery is the rational function of thinking and feeling. And the rational function is about how you solve problems and make decisions. How you solve problems and make decisions. If you are someone who is more thinking function, you will solve a problem in a logical, rational way. You are all about the task and the goal. You will think it through in yes, no, black, white, on, off ways. You are considering the effect of your decision. If you are someone who is more feeling function, you will solve that problem in a much more subjective way. Is it going to be nice or nasty? Pleasant or unpleasant? How is it going to impact on the people around me? You are more concerned with preserving the relationship. You are concerned with the affect of the decision. The effect and the affect. Now, how many of you like watching programs about psychopaths? Oh, look, they come up. Have you seen the ones on Netflix where Mr. Piers Morgan, I don't particularly like him, but he interviews the psychopaths? Have you seen that? And they have the clinical psychologist and the FBI profiler in the other room, and they get really excited because they say, look, the psychopath, there's no affect. The psychopath is not worried about the impact of their decisions. They're only really worried about the affect. And the psychopath is right up here. Does anybody know any psychopaths in the workplace? There we go. Yes, I am one. Don't you out me here. And have you read or heard about those books about how we create organisations which are fantastic for psychopaths to operate in, or that whole thinking function? Because in an organisation, the bigger and bigger it gets, if you can make decisions in a way that you're not really concerned about the impact on other people's feelings, it's probably easier for you. You can make those decisions. It's not going to drain you as much. But if you ask somebody who's very much up here to start spending some time with some people and be concerned with how they feel, just looking around to see if anybody's looking in the room and go, oh, don't ask me to do that, that's really tough. That will be hard for them. You ask somebody who has strong feeling function to do more thinking, that will be hard for them. And some people might be really balanced in between, saying, I can do both. So those are the Jungian functions. And with insights discovery, what we do is we use colour energies as a way to identify where people's preferences are. Very harmonious types, very strong values. But if that goes too far, they can be the types who take what you said, go away, think about it for 3 days, come back and then go, what you said the other day, that really hurt my feelings. And I've never been so offended in all my life. And I'm feeling like, you know, you don't really value me in this organisation. And of course, if that's happening with someone with strong red energy, they're going, yeah, you're pretty much right, because I pretty much see you as docile, bland, harbouring resentment, doesn't have any get up and go. But there's great strength in green energy, don't get me wrong, because they want you to show me that you care, and why can't everyone get along? There's a lot to be seen and benefited from green energy, but it could be, you know, a little bit whirlpool of phlegm, especially if you've got a lot of green energy together and they cluster together in some staff room corner and someone's gone and offended them. And then we get the cool blues. Introversion with thinking. Think in order to speak and are going to solve problems in a rational and logical way. Very cautious, precise, analytical, methodical. But if that goes too far, they could be perceived as distant, cold, aloof, robotic. Well, I'm a bit disappointed with the fact that you didn't actually pay attention to my plan. I don't want to pay attention to your plan. I just want to get out there and take some action. You know, I'll just wing it. That's not going to go well, is it? Yellow and blue energy being like that. Because blue energy wants you to give them the facts and get it right. Now, the way that this works is we've got all 4 colours within us, and it's the order of the colours and the amount of the colour that's going to make up your perception of the world and what makes sense to you. Okay, so we've got the extroverts who are red and yellow, the introverts who are blue and green, thinking function blue and red, feeling function yellow and green. Now be honest with me, while I was going through that, what were you all genuinely thinking about? What colour are you? Exactly right. And then you were probably thinking, oh, what colour are you? Like this. And of course, we have a diagnostic tool for people to be able to take this as a proper test, and then we can build up a proper profile of each individual, which we can verify with them, and you can actually say how accurate it is, as well as being able to look at a team as well. But what I really want you to remember is that think in order to speak, and speak in order to think on the attitudinal function, and the effect of your decision and the affect on the rational thinking feeling spectrum, okay? Now, we get these types of behaviours that I just alluded to in my sort of like act there, okay? And it's quite an interesting thing when you're having a team day and you have some fiery reds in the room and you ask them, what do you think of the words competitive, demanding, determined, strong-willed? And they go, they're bloody great words, they're excellent, I like that. And then you walk over the room, don't you, to the people who have strong green energy and say, what do you think of those words? Well, that's a bit much, isn't it? But this is people when they're on a good day, when they're in control, when they've got the persona in place, which we call the conscious persona. Unfortunately, we're not always in a controlled, responsive, adult-like state, are we? And we get moments of stress and pressure and things happen. And that controlled mask can slip and we get to a less conscious persona. When we don't tend to behave with the positive words, we tend to start acting with the less positive words. Now, this happened to me this morning. I mean, I'm a practitioner in this and I'm at a business event and somebody said something to me and I happened to lead with red energy, quite a lot of yellow energy. He said something and I slipped straight away to the aggressive side of things. Wasn't particularly good use of my energy there. I could have perhaps behaved in a better way. Apologised to him afterwards, but he brought that aggressive, controlling behaviour out. The mask had slipped. Now, it's in us all the time. We want to be able to be in that responsive state. And this is what the tool will enable us to do when we start looking at actual people in teams. But I do want to reiterate, this does not put people into boxes. It expresses a preference and it enables people to understand where they like to be and where other people like to be and how it makes sense to them. So, you know, fiery red, they're active, move in a positive, firm direction, have a strong determination that will influence those they interact with, are single-minded and determined, and their focus on results, approach others in a straightforward and direct manner, and seek an outcome that is specific and tangible. Yellow energy will radiate enthusiasm and encourage participation, enjoy and seek the company of others, approach others in a persuasive and engaging, inviting manner, have a desire to be involved, and like to be noticed and appreciated for their contributions. Green energy, view the world through what they value and what's important to them. Seek harmony and depth in relationships. Defend what they value with a quiet determination and persistence. Prefer democratic approaches that respect the individual. And this is perhaps the most important thing. Ensure all individual perspectives are heard and considered when making choices or decisions. Because one of the things that green energy should do is stand up to red energy and say, we've heard enough from you. There are other people in this room who also have important things to say, and you're dominating the conversation. No, you don't want to do that? But this is what we work on, isn't it? You have that courageous conversation that Nikki was talking about, and it does show courage, but it also shows courage for somebody who leads with red energy to try to calm them down and be a bit nicer to people, but that's difficult for them as well. And people will go, are you joking? Is this, because I was telling a story earlier today. So I'm working with a charity at the moment, and it's one of the best examples I have. In this charity, there's 9 senior women who are working their way through to become leaders within that organisation. And most of them in this charity are very, very strong green energy, and there's 2 who are very strong red. And one of these people who is very strong red energy, she comes from London and she used to work in probation, and she talks like this a lot, and she's really up in people's faces all the time. And the other is someone who's like a matron who works in palliative care. She's a very strong, compassionate woman, but she is bold. And what they asked them to do is, they've been on this course, they've been doing like 7 months of it, and they said, right, spend a whole day, just being quiet, being considered, and being kind. We'll just do an experiment. What do you think they were like by the end of the day? They were shattered, and they genuinely were, and they're sitting in their chair, and the others are going, let me get this right. Are you genuinely tired from being quiet and being kind? And they're going, yes. And people started to build tolerance and understanding for each other. Okay? Cool blue energy, desire to know and understand the world around them. Maintain a detached and objective standpoint. Well, that sounds quite interesting. Value independence and intellect. That's pretty important. Think things through before committing to action. Cool, we don't want any of that in the workplace, do we? And like information to be accurate and complete before proceeding. Well, that's pretty valuable as well. So there are strengths in all the colour energies. Now, I mentioned these facts. You know, these are the core drivers. Give me the facts, get it right for blue. Red energy wants you to be bright, be brief, be gone, get it done. Yellow energy, notice and involve me, you know, get involved. Green energy, show me you care, and why can't we all get along? And there are things about what we need to do to adapt and connect with people. So if you can recognise the type of colour energies that might exist in your organisation, you probably have to be the one that has to change. And that's perhaps the hardest thing for some people. You mean I have to change? Well, yeah. If you change, you might get something better out of them. Well, can't they change? Well, maybe they can if we've, you know, been through the tool and someone's had a courageous chat with them. You're a little bit red energy today. Oh yeah, I was, wasn't I? I'll calm it down. But with cool blue energy, be well prepared and thorough when you go to speak to them. With red energy, be direct and to the point. Red energy won't mind if you stand up to them. Yellow, you don't know some of the red energies I do. I think someone was going to say there, but sunshine yellow, be friendly and sociable, be patient and supportive with green. If you want to upset them, be flippant on important issues. And that's one of the problems for yellow energy. Yellow energy can be really sarcastic. They think they're being funny, but it ain't very good for the blue energy. For red energy, do not hesitate or waffle. And unfortunately, green energy can come across like that to red. Come walking into your office in a sort of like nervous and sort of like, oh, I'm ever so upset about the weekend I've just had. Look, I'm not interested. I just want to get on with my work. Sunshine yellow doesn't want to be tied down to routine. They want to be out there and engaging. And yet blue energy is probably going to say, we've got a process we've got to go through here. And earth green, you cannot push them to make fast decisions. But what you end up with is a profile that maps you out, doesn't put you into a box, but says this is where you probably prefer to be. This is what makes sense to you. And people will get a report that either has a couple of circles on it or one. And this is talking about your conscious persona, when you're in control, on form, you're responsive, adult, you vet well, you know, your brand on a good day. And it will also show where your less conscious persona is, when the mask has slipped, when you're more reactive, maybe under stress or pressure. And some people have a report where you can only see one pie chart like that. But everybody's got a conscious persona and a less conscious persona. Why do you think there's only one circle on people like that? They're the same. They don't move. They're absolutely fine. Although some of them are just holding such a mask in place. That's interesting when you meet them. Anyway, you start to get a tool like this, and it can show individual elements. This just happens to be somebody very, very close to my own heart. I'm extrovert, okay? And I've been extrovert all my life. Well, actually, what Jung would say is you make this decision about the way the world makes sense to you at about the age of 6, 7, 8. And then the rest of your life is dealing with those decisions and having to recognize that, oh no, maybe there's another way. But how hard is it to not be what you see yourself as? And some people are much more focused. Some people are classic, like me. We've got 2 colours. Some people are accommodating. And they can easily flow around. They're the chameleon. They can do lots, but they have one colour which they find really difficult and will avoid. It will be very difficult for them to do. And some people are creative, irrational types which have a tension going on between them, and we have to have very, very special conversations with them. I was at an event yesterday, 30 solicitors, and in this room there were 2 who were called creative irrational types, who were 0.0048% of the population opposing to each other. Right? I was really looking forward to it because I was just going to get them together, because it's like, this is going to be great. One of them didn't turn up because they hate the other one so much. And I go, you cannot make this up. I know. Anyway, so here's a case study, okay? This is a team. They're all leading with green energy. What conclusions can you draw from it?
No decisions are going to be made.
No decisions are going to be made. Do you know how to work with them for a year? I know, it's hilarious, isn't it? But who has to change? Are there any questions? Yes, sir. Not you, him. Yes, and there are an interview chapter section that can come out, and that's pretty interesting, because when you ask people to answer questions for an interview, lots of times they want to put on a good face, don't they, the persona for what the role is. So when we use it for recruitment, we say, look, you've got to be honest. And then you get a chapter that gives you 2 sets of questions. You can have questions that are going to be incredibly supportive if you want to be nurturing and supportive in that interview process. Guess what the other questions do? Really challenging questions that will put people under pressure and stress, so you can see how they respond to that type of crisis moment. So yes, we do. Yes, sir.
You do this analysis on your team and find it's not well balanced.
Yep.
You have to sack everyone and start again.
I recommend that on a daily basis anyway, because it tends to get people into that type of mood. But when we do team diagnostics, we get called in for various reasons. Yes, sometimes it's because people are going through crisis, they're going through stress, it's a tough time, there might be tensions in the workplace, and it starts to get people to understand where they come from. You can recognize gaps. It's quite interesting in certain cultural environments that you'll tend to get people who are of a similar type, because roles will tend to have people like that. But we will never say to people, this is what you are. It's about recognizing at times when we have to be like this, it will be more energy draining for us. So let's be kind and compassionate to each other. But like with that first cohort, it was obvious nothing's going to get done. You know, they are all just into their own mindset and being lovely to each other and doing their science, but they were actually going to have to be team leaders and managers within the civil service. The report that you get, we should have brought some full reports along, or we can send to anybody, you know, just a example report to show you the level of detail that you get. But, you know, it's not cheap, I would say. It's a lot more expensive than Myers-Briggs, which people might have heard of, MBTI. Yeah, so an insights discovery profile is £99 plus VAT per person. But there is stuff that we can do to, you know, get people where they might generally be.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Elliot. Thank you.